بلد كثير الخيرات فيه كل ثروات الزراعية والحيوانية والمعادن فكيف أكون جعان وكيف أكون عاريان وكيف أكون مرضان بدون دواء في بلدي الغنية.
Welcome to Terab 87.6 FM, Seeds of South Sudan.
Hello and welcome to Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building a new nation. With me, Madingor. This week on Fixing South Sudan, a conversation about how to achieve profound transformation in the Republic of South Sudan. What will it take for our country to exit from the current traps of conflict, underdevelopment, and instability to a prosperous future? Joining us in the program is General Aleu Ayieny, former governor of Warrap State and former Minister of Interior. Sir, it's my pleasure to welcome you to Terab Radio 87.6 FM and to Fixing South Sudan talk show. Welcome. How are you?
Thank you so much, Brother Meding. First of all, I'm grateful for your invitation to come and surprise me of this big investment, which most of the Southerners do not know.
Thank you.
You have talked to me of these studios. I didn't know that you were doing such a wonderful. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. We have been conducting countless interviews in this show on how to generate new ideas and solutions to fix the nation. Is it possible to fix South Sudan? If so, how? And where do we begin?
Comrade Meding, this is a very difficult question. And actually it is important you asked it, because all of us who were the liberators differ of what you call a state now or a nation. We are a unique country in the world and in Africa in particular. We do not have anybody who admits that they have colonized us. The British or the Turks came to Southern Sudan not to govern us. They were looking for slaves. When they opened up in 1820 and they came to Southern Sudan, they were looking only for resources of South Sudan. Then Gordon was sent in by the British to come and stop slavery. And in the end, he was killed by Mahdia. So the British came on the back of Egyptians to come and establish Anglo-Egyptian South Sudan, which was not a colony in the real sense of colony. Sudan was administered in the Foreign Office until the so-called independence. We were not in the colonial office. There came up a misunderstanding in 1924 revolution in which the Egyptians' responsibilities were reduced and the British decided to be responsible for the whole Sudan, and Southern Sudan was treated differently. You might have heard of closed districts in which parts of Sudan with the indigenous Africans were cut off from the Arabs. After independence, even though we have memories of the British, the Sudan never became a member of the Commonwealth like most of the colonial Africa. So independence, when we was given, and Sudanization of the foreign positions, which became the reason for the conflict and the beginning of our fight with the North. Northerners used to treat us as different people completely. They used to look down at us, and we didn't want this. And that actually brought up the Torrid conflict. Then the Nyanya One. Nyanya One, they do not know what to call the Khartoum ruling people, whether they were colonizers, or Arab invaders. There was confusion in that. Until SPLM came, I have never heard Dr. John talking of Arab invaders or northern colonization of Southern Sudan. He talks of bad governance by the ruling minority, the ruling clique in Khartoum. So when the British left, there was a handing and taking over after Sudanization. Jobs that used to belong to the British and the Egyptians were handed over to the Sudanese. That was the system. And then when we got our independence here, there was nobody to hand us offices in Southern Sudan. Even the North, who used to say they are governing us, there was no real governance in the South. There was no handing over and taking over. What I saw personally was Umar Bashir coming to the graveyard of Dr. John. He brought down his flag. It was the only flag that was witnessed being lowered, and our flag going up with the General Salva Kiir, president by then. And instead, they went to a house where they went and raised the flag of Khartoum and the flag of Southern Sudan as the first embassy. There were no ministries. When we came here, there were only 18 vehicles, and at least 9 were off-road when we brought the body of Dr. John. And then suddenly, slowly, we started working on establishment of what we didn't know by the way. Is it a nation or is it a state building? When we came in as different people completely in the bush. Among us were liberators, and among us were revolutionaries. The revolutionaries were talking of a new Sudan. Liberators wanted a separate South to get rid of the Arabs or the ruling clique in Khartoum and creation of a new country in the South. Revolutionaries wanted complete change. Dr. John in particular was talking of unity of marginalized Sudanese. And it was possible for the marginalized Sudanese, because they are the majority, to take a power in Khartoum. Options were put forward, and he came up with modalities of how best we will handle this. These modalities of Dr. John are very clear. We would go for a transition to give unity a chance. And then models of 2 countries together.
2 systems.
The 2 systems. The 5 years of transition was to actually give a chance for Sudan to come up with a new communality, something we were aspiring for. It will become possible that the Northerners, with their sectarian mentality and their adhesion to Arabism and Islamism, it become impossible to unite, then the 2 countries can separate. Unfortunately, Dr. John died. He never left a will that we were supposed to follow. Even though some of us who used to listen to his speeches, we understand what he had in mind. He was not a unionist or a separatist, but he has created a situation whereby, should we unite, he will educate the North in such a way that they begin to know their rights and fight for their rights, like what is happening now. He was responsible for converting Nahb al-Musalla, اللي هو armed robbery in Darfur, into a liberation movement. He called them to Nairobi, and he gave them what to do to transform their movement into a national movement. This thing succeeded. That's why you have liberators now there we have Nuba, we have Angasna. And at the time he died, he had people from upper north were being trained in Ethiopia. And that thing got stopped because he died. Because one of the guys who was supposed to lead a movement in the north is my colleague, Dr. Salah Bender. He was with me in Alexandria. So many things went wrong. Salva was left in, President Salva became the president. He had choices. The agreement talks of a referendum. This referendum would want us to accommodate everybody, to give his vote for separation or unity. So what he did was to unite Southerners, irrespective of their ideologies or what they think. We even brought in collaborators who were fighting us. People who were against us were made to come into it. And in the end, the referendum brought in South Sudan. So we never inherited anything. This is what I wanted. Something we call, when you want to fix something, it was something good that went wrong and then somebody must fix it. So there was nothing we got from the Arabs or even British left behind. Even the few infrastructure that was made was destroyed. It was full of landmines. So one of people cleared most of the mines here. So there was nothing that was there and we mismanaged it that we need any fixing now. What we have missed is just a simple thing. And Dr. John used to talk of it. If we get South Sudan, we are going to build a state. For you to build a state, there are institutions of the state. States go back up to 6,000 years. So if you have a geographical entity, which you believe to be your sovereign boundary, the first things you need in a state is security, forces to protect that boundary, strong forces. And within that sovereign institutions, you must establish rule of law. There must be law. There must be laws to be respected and to be implemented. That brings us, for these laws to be implemented, you must have law enforcement agencies. Police, prosecutors, and the judges, courts. Once you have such strong sovereign institutions, then what next? That is the strength of a state. Once you have such a strong state with the proper laws, that must be developed by the parliament, together with the executive, and they are passed and they become laws of the land. Once you have law and law enforcement, what do you establish this thing for? It's to protect the properties, whether they are private or public properties. And for you to be able to protect private and public properties, you must have a very strong hand of the state. We didn't do that.
What they call monopoly of violence.
Monopoly of violence. In that monopoly of violence, the state do not allow me to fight with you. It is a prerogative of the state. If I fight with you over something, then there must be a law that will stop us and bring justice between two of us without necessarily killing each other.
87.6 FM. You're on Fixing South Sudan. Your ideas for building the new nation.
Now, how do
I am Madingor, and with us in the studio is General Aleu Ayieny, former governor of Warrap State and former Minister of Interior, now speaking about fixing South Sudan. Where did the problem begin, and is going to history, that the challenges we are facing stem from our troubled history. Continue with your thought.
Now look at the strength of the, what you call sovereign authorities right now. We don't have an army in the first place. The SPLM got dissolved with elements that were even fighting with us. A big army that we can never improve to be the standards we need to protect the country, to do, and become a big expanding agent. And the money to improve that army, to bring arms, to bring logistics, all that they need to be a strong army became difficult. Now the police, we mixed up the police that was in what came with us, and then strengthening the police to be able to enforce the law became difficult. Police, what kind of person that should be a police? And how do you treat that police? You must have a full pocket, not to look into pockets of other people. You must be somebody who's living with average living, that you should not think of taking something from them. The police actually is the measure of a nation. You come to the airport and see the first police, you can know what kind of country is that. Prisons. We cannot have what we cannot call what we have are not real prisoners. Courts. It's another story. Things that we must accept and admit that we did not concentrate on institutions that are necessary for us to do services. We immediately inherited certain problems. Our people were expecting too much. We promised them so many things. We told them so many lies. People who went there, some of them went for different agendas. But our duty as political commissars was to orient them, to make them, if you went there only to go and get guns to come and fight with the Morley, it was our duty to change their minds that the problem is not the Morley. If you went there from a wheel, Gogrial and Toin to Bill Farm, to go and look for guns to come and fight the Marahil, we tell them these are your brothers. But there is somebody in Khartoum who's using them against you. Get this gun and we must overthrow the system in Khartoum. We need to be different from Anyanya One who were asking. We were not asking for anything. We want to take what we have actually put in our minds as a liberation of the South. Fortunately, we were able to do it. To do it needs everybody to participate, and we must have a true picture of the vision of what we were fighting for. Now, there became so much contradiction between liberators and the revolutionaries.
What is the difference?
A revolutionary is a man of change. He's fighting that system to create a new system for tomorrow and for generations.
Total transformation.
Total transformation. A liberator is somebody who went there to fight for Arabs, fight for Muslims, to fight for freedoms. These are basic things of a liberator.
The mission ends with independence.
With independence. And then majority picked up freedoms. These freedoms brought in freedom of theft, freedom of cattle rustling, freedom of so many things that can make the nation not go on. They are within us here. It was not possible to bring the two people together. Balancing them is not an easy thing. In the rural area, as well in the urban area. Formation of a government became a balancing of whoever claims is a southerner. They must all be involved. So the real revolutionaries slowly became marginalized. And it is not secret. The guys who were fighting us actually have agenda that came from them, and they actually join us. And the kind of training they got from there, they wormed their way into authorities. And the real guys that were supposed to continue with the revolution, most of them dropped away. Unfortunately, Salva Kiir did a good thing by appointing Pagan as the Secretary General in the beginning to strengthen the SPLM, because this is where the vision is. I will never forgive Pagan for failing the SPLM. Even if he is now, I still condemn him there, because that chance, he knew the vision, he knew the mission, and he should have strengthened the SPLM, and the government, that is the executive or the government itself, should have been formed on the ideas of the movement, because it is a party first, then form the government. What is the government? Judiciary, executive, and legislature. Legislature should have, when we went to elections, we came 98% as SPLM. Judiciary, it was not based on the party level, but the party can influence it and to give him why we want judiciary. Because peace comes. To have peace in the country, there must be justice.
Law and order.
And law and order. That's where we went wrong. The law enforcement and law itself is something wrong with it up to now. Now, once you have a strong government, what do you do? You should have what you call focus. What do you focus?
Priorities.
Priorities you have. First of all, what are your resources? What do you think is the best resource we have in the South? We have human resources and we have natural resources. Most Southerners, we jump in that we have oil. That is not the resource. Completely. The way we were trained. Our best resource we have in Southern Sudan is the human being himself. The strength of the population. People who must fight ignorance and bring knowledge to be able to be productive. We neglected our youth. And we started copying things. Made in South Africa, made in Uganda, made in Kenya. This institution is in Kenya. We made so many ministries. And then below them were so many commissions, which are replications of the whole thing. Ended up as jobism, to accommodate as many people and to pay the whole population. But what we should have done, personally, I would have chosen the human resource first. We inherited about 4 universities from Juba, from Khartoum. What were the 3? Jama Juba, Jama Bahar Ghazal, Jama Al Nil, and the kind of curriculum that were there are not the kind of education we need to fix this country. I want to just underline that. What do we need with philosophers? Everybody wants to study international relations. We can't be ambassadors or political science that we need. We should have closed most of the higher education and fix one university like Jama Juba. The medicine that is spread out between the 3 should be in one university with a very good selection of people, make good labs, all the requirements to produce a good doctor. The same thing engineering, agriculture. One university only for the South. Bring them all to Juba. Make good Jama Juba with students that have dormitories and they are fed well. Like what they used to be doing in Jama Juba, and Egyptians are doing it. And other people are doing it. Now for our generation that have missed education, it is not too late to educate anybody. After one university, go for primary schools. These are our priority with a different curriculum completely. There are better curriculums in the East Africa here and choose a good language and what would really salvage us as quick as possible. Now, after elementary schools, we go for vocational training, intensive vocational training, a training that do not need anybody who writes and reads. First priority are the cattle owners. These youth doing cattle raiding from cattle, what they call them?
Child abduction.
And women abduction. The triangle is known from Pibor to Warrap through Unity. It's a very big area. We must transform these youth of that area that we got by them. Instead of fighting each other, we provide skills to them. I don't think it is ridiculous to turn a Morley youth to an electrician. I've seen people who are electricians and they have never been to the school. I've seen mechanics who have never been to the school. There must be a vocational school for every county to teach them in vernacular in their languages and give them the skills necessary to be able to be productive. What is the objection of our liberation? Is to form Southerners to be productive forces. Help them produce better in agriculture by intensive agriculture extension. Introduce new crops, high-yielding crops. Help them to move away from horizontal production to vertical production. By vertical production, you will be producing from a very small area. Transform the cow, which is the big problem of the majority of the people in Southern Sudan. If it is not a problem to cow owners, it becomes also a problem to non-cow owners. Like, what is happening between cow owners and Equatorians? What do we do with this cow? And that is the only program that NGOs are totally successful. Our cows are not dying now like before. The population, it's believed that we have 6 million cows. And I would repeat it again, 3 million are in Warrap alone. What are they for? They are not economic cows. And the nature of our cows itself is a factor in cattle rustling. This lean cow, which is not a milk cow nor even a meat cow, once it is rustled, it can run for 24 hours. So he's helping the thief to run away with it. This kind of cow, we must make them economical cows. I hope the people of animal resources are listening to me. How do we do this? Transform them to economic cows by just importing semens only. You don't need to bring bulls. Crossbreeding, up to 2 generations, you will have a cow that cannot even run and is producing litters. You have reduced the horns, you have reduced everything. It has become real that you would, even if you have 200 cows, you will have to reduce them to have 25, and 25 will get you a lot of money. Like you go to Holland with Aberdeen Angus, Parisians, the Indian cows, they are a lot of milk producers and a lot of meat. We have thousands of cows. Their only usefulness to us is buying, or what is it? Is it marrying several wives? If you don't have them, you must go for informal distribution of cows. Kill someone and take those cows to come and marry with them. That's only for marriage? No. We must do something for the cow, and it is not very difficult. If we don't do something for the cow, problems from Jonglei through Unity to Baragazal, with the exception of Raja, Western Baragazal, we will always have cow is our problem. We must change it into a very useful cow that is getting us wealth
Welcome to Terab 87.6 FM, Seeds of South Sudan.
You're on Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. With me, Madingor, and with us in the studio, General Aleu Ayieny, former governor of Warrap State and former Minister of Interior. Speaking about fixing South Sudan, I started by asking you, can South Sudan be fixed? If yes, where do we start? And you went back to history and you came to the contemporary setup of the government, that the institutions have failed us. And if the institutions have failed, can they be revitalized?
They can be revitalized by law only. A ruthless law enforcement. The law, the security organs we have, they are so confused that their job overlaps. We do not know what is the work of national security and what is the work of the police. The police is doing, national security is doing the work of the police. Yes, or the army sometimes is brought to come and do the work of the police. So we need to do something about this. What is the police? Police is detection of crime and preventing crime. That's the definition of the police. You train the police, their duties. It is CID which is the foundation of the police. Once you have a very strong police, a CID, they can easily, and they are being paid properly. Like the British, how do you call the Scotland Yard, they are paid that they cannot be corrupt. They have accommodation. They have whatever they need, special schools for them. And their duty is to detect and prevent a crime. When you have police that detects and prevent a crime, there will not be corruption. Corruption will have no way to completely to pass. So we have a lot of secondary school leavers, a lot of university graduates who have nothing. Let us push away the old elements. Bring in very good trainers from neighboring countries or from our friends in Europe to train a new strong, that is the beginning of it. Because once you have a strong police, then the next thing is our strong courts. You have a courts that are divided now. You get within one building, there's one group working in Arabic, the other groups working in English. I have a case that my car was crashed by the UN on the way to Europe. It took 3 months. It took 3 years. And the advocates who could not get there themselves, and their only duty is actually to delay cases. And once the case is, decision is made, appeal. Appeal until the owners of the cases die sometimes while people are appealing up to Supreme Court. Where is justice? Justice delayed
is denied.
The president must do something about judiciary. You catch a thief, and for 3 years he is not prosecuted, and sometimes in the prison he may even run away in funny ways. So law enforcement, objective, protect private and public. How do you do this? It is by training people, highly trained bureaucracy. Also, who knows what they are doing. They are not going to the government to go and enrich themselves. They are going to serve. That lean civil service. That would make it possible for the government to train them, send them abroad to acquire knowledge if they are few. But if they are in thousands and thousands, and a lot of them are even ghost employees, a lot of money is going away that do not go to the right people. We have people that can be trained. Now, I mentioned education is the first. And that education must be a productive education. People who would be trained in vocational is our first priority. Ministry of Labor must be funded and allowed to open all vocational training in all the states, such that we can produce at the state level somebody who can fix a door, Somebody who can make a nail. Masons. People who can build. Ugandans can't be constructing our house until one. But we have people that we concentrate on them. They would be able to do all these jobs. Electricians. Roads. We have to train the drivers. Do you know what the mechanic get in these garages here? Their income is much higher than that one of the president of the state. If you get about $1 million in the day, some of them do not write and read, but they know how to lie under a car. They can fix generators. This is what we must give our people to be productive.
Let me give you a quick break and then we will come back.
87.6 FM.
Welcome back to Fixing South Sudan, your ideas for building the new nation. With me, Madingo, and with us in the studio is General Aleu Ayieny, a liberator, a freedom fighter. He calls himself a revolutionary. You are saying that the institutions can be revitalized, and for that job to be accomplished requires political will. Is it there?
Correct. Political will is very important. And this political will must be legitimate. And as I hear people now talking of elections, it's all about legitimacy. Once you are legitimized by the population by voting you in with their own agenda, and that population is empowered to recall you when you are not doing your job, not only by presidential decree, the population can recall their wrong representatives. The same thing, the president was elected by the president. If he's not doing his job,
By the people.
by the people. It is the people actually who should come up. They will start first with the parliament. If it means closing down the parliament, bringing in new voters. Our parliament became a weak parliament because of our being majority. And that was responsible for this conflict. When I was in the parliament, we see mistakes. And you cannot oppose your party. It's a taboo. So there was because we were a majority, we could not advise the executive. One time, I just don't want to kick a dead man, but one of the state ministers, we called him to the parliament. I was the chair of I was the acting speaker by then, and then we called him. We were asking him, why are people not getting salaries? He went and told us that we are thinking of even closing down some of the institutions that are not delivering, including the parliament. It's not delivering to the people. We want institutions that can help. What do you mean with the closing parliament is not delivering? Who makes your budget as a minister of interior? Who approves it? He doesn't know that it's the parliament that approves it. He doesn't know that it's parliament that generate laws to be respected, to have law-abiding citizens. We told him go away, and then we took him to ABC, and we agreed that we must impeach him. Our president, who is the chairman of also the party, had it. He called me, and he said, "This is a very young man. He doesn't understand anything. Just impeaching him, you have destroyed him. 7 years, he will not have a public office. Forgive him. I'll talk to him and I'll remove him from the position." We said, okay, that's what we want. He was removed. Slowly, without impeachment. And that was the first impeachment that was seriously pushed in the parliament. Now, the parliament must be overseers of everybody, so that we can be able to do what is needed in us.
In the setup of the government, there is the parliament, there is the executive, there is the judiciary.
Mm-hmm.
And there have to be checks and balances.
Exactly.
Right now, they're all sleeping on the wheel.
Well, it depends who is the speaker. I remember when Wani was the speaker, things were moving. Sometimes we used to push him to do certain things, but it still comes to the party.
And in those days, it was mostly an elected parliament.
It was an
The
elected
current parliament is appointed parliament. So these institutions, when we talk about political will and revitalizing the institutions, it cannot happen in a vacuum.
Now it's even worse. Because you go to parliament, I was a governor. My parliament was all SPLA, Viva, all this nonsense. When anything comes, they don't even know that this is a government of national unity. The new guys who joined the IO or new appointments into the SPLM in government or other signatories thought they were going to fight the government. A government where they are members. They are a coalition. Instead to cooperate with the government, what is in their mind is impeaching the governor or impeaching ministers. And that, the job is divided. They have their own work. The executive have their own work and the judiciary have its own work, and all must work together, and the parliament actually should be the one supervising them. That's a normal system. But if we begin to cover our members, even if they make mistakes, no, we are not moving. Members that make mistakes, we should be hard on them.
And accountability begins in parliament.
And it starts in parliament and goes to executive. The public service needs a heavy hand of the law. Because when we started, we thought that we didn't come with the public service from the bush. We got them here. Those that were believed the Sudan government did not lay them off, but they were gathered somewhere where they are given their salaries. They were not being trained like their counterparts in the north. Most of them were in Khartoum and they get salaries. So when we came, we thought that we have what they call a civil servant that will help us start something. Some of them thought that we came from the bush very rich. And that they need also to be, because they were marginalized by Khartoum, they want also to be like us. We never came with anything. And at least some of them, we got them have houses. We never had houses. By then we started competing on what to do, and then where the mess started. Because it's civil service. What kind of, let us say, go to public service. A public service with no nominal role, without an annual increment, no pensions,
no promotions.
No promotions. Where? And what is denying that? It's a nominal role that gives you a number of years that you should spend in that post. It is the one that gives you annual increment. It is one that forces the government to promote you to a next. If you are doing very well, you go to the next position until you go where you can go on pension. And there are number of years you must spend in the position. If you are not progressing, go home. You get your benefits. Now, what do? We have civil servants who are 80 years. Where do you get all these people?
And they are not retiring.
The army is not retiring. The police is not retiring. Leave alone politicians who don't retire. So these are few things. But when people talk, they think that you are opposing the government. Who is the owner of this government? When I talk as SPLM, and I am responsible for all the mistakes that is there, like any other person.
You are the regime.
I am the regime. And it is not wrong to say this is what we must do. If that kills me, let it kill me. But that's the truth.
Are you optimistic that there will be a turnaround? Because the way things are going, without any significant change, we are in trouble.
Nobody is trusting anybody any longer. So there are so many people with very good ideas. People, if they are allowed to meet with the leadership and given time to say, this is what I want, and let us please discuss it. See, if it is useful, we implement it. Look at SPLM, which I think is the main confusion. What are they fighting for among themselves? It happened in the bush. It was a mistake. We did it ourselves. Dr. John decided to have permanent leadership, what is called high command, with 5 people only. More than 10 members of alternate members. And then there is the so-called, those who became now, they call them Aulad John. These were us. The political commissars, the MI bodyguards of this view of the higher command were a different leadership behind the alternate members. Now, the 3 sectors of leadership, John had an idea of secession. Should he go, who would come? But nobody knew would he take when he is going to promote these people to be members of the leadership. These young boys who are fighting the war also were being ambitious of their own. The guys in the alternate members waited until they didn't know whom they are. They decided to revolt against the permanent. Because there were the doctors who were there in the alternate members who, by their right of education, didn't want to recognize people like William Garang, William Nyon, those of Arok. Though even Aroks were even considered even illiterate also because just military officers. But some of the PhDs holders, they were not very much educated. That's for them. And then people like, and there was one statement made by one person who is here now. One time in Gambela, in my presence. Big gap between Dr. John and Dr. Yang Machar. What did that mean? Is that only Dr. John is up there and Dr. Riak down here, and what is in between is rubbish. That one cost him number of years in prison. Till in the end he was removed. He was released and he went into opposition. He might have been saying the truth. But these guys will never relinquish the leadership, and they were also fighting for their own survival. Riak started to look for a better leadership. Supported by some of them who went and betrayed him, and they went back in. It was believed that people who stood with the doctor, with the Dr. John, were Salfa and Kwalmanya. The rest was part of the conspiracy, and I confirmed this when Tilar in front of Salfa, Rumbek. In our crisis in Rumbek, he came. He didn't know what was happening when he came. He went straight to where the Salfa is, and I was there. Again, Tilar was saying, "What is happening again? And who are the guys with you?" I think some members of the High Command were with us. Some people I know. And then Tilar was pointing
at someone.
He was pointing at someone, Jamad El Mahak. Then this thing is likely going to fail again. It was that one was a basic necessity. What Riak did, there were mistakes, but even though he revolted, he changed certain things and made it possible for us now to have a country. Then some things that were a taboo for us not to mention, things like self-determination, they were not in our dictionary.
It's only after that when the Chukudum Convention was organized.
Yeah, and then he had already pushed the agenda. There's a reason for fighting us.
On the question of institutions, let me end on this note. This current government is a bloated government. It's too big and expensive. Development cannot happen in the current form. What needs to be done?
It goes back to the party. We need to unite the truth. Those who revolt, and they have come back, became signatories to this, and they are SPLM. And the SPLM who are still in opposition, people like Malong, people like Thomas Cirillo of Nas Pagan, if anybody would listen to me. Why don't we call for an SPLM, real SPLM conference, minus our affiliates? We don't need them in this conference. You go and sit down like what we did in Moy Sukun and go and ask ourselves, where did we go wrong? Insult ourselves for 2 weeks, pointing hands. We did it in Moy Sukun, and we were able to identify all our problems. In the end, we said, let us close the page. Dr. John said, let us close the page, and we start a new one. People told him, how many pages do you have? He said, now it is 1 page. We have closed it. From Moy Sukun, we went straight for operations, and that's how we liberated minimally up to Gogrial. That became the beginning of unity. So unity is important always. Now we have quarreled on what? Can we forgive each other and start something? We must leave a legacy to the people of Southern Sudan. We just don't want to live like this. We must hand them what is tangible, so that we can point out to our children, it is we who did this. So if you unite, then we'll come out for agenda for the elections.
And for nation building.
That agenda, we go for elections. If they elect us, we are coming only for 5 years. These 5 years away from Juba, everything to the rural areas. We must compensate them for what they did for us. Do something there in 5 years. We must come back from that conference with the policy of exit. What do we do after 5 years? There's time for the other generations to go on there. Young ones come and we move home. And they will give us packages to go home. Again, I'm going back to security. You do not need to have thousands of soldiers. I have always been campaigning for a ministry for veteran affairs. To remove all these old officers, generals, put them there in veteran affairs as a ministry.
And care for them.
Open for them their schools. The first veteran could even go back to those of Dengnial and whoever fought in the Nyayawan. Even the Konanok who were fighting with the British are veterans.
If they are still alive.
They have children. That will encourage everybody that we have not forgiven them. By the way, I've written a book about the 150 years of struggle. Very good research. Everybody, it will be out in January. Now, what I mean by us doing something is the legacy. What do they need in the village? Schools. Make them productive and give them justice. The local government has already died. It is time for the pyramid to be upside down, such that the money going to the rural areas must be more than the money remaining in Juba here, such that we move our people to. We will never move, we will never fix unless we create strong boomers that will make strong payams. Strong payams that will make strong counties. Strong counties that will make strong states. And strong states that will make a strong Juba nation. All this know-how must go to the rural areas and give them their salaries at the national level to go and teach.
Speaking about rural development,
Yes.
there is the SPLM strategic framework. The document exists, the agenda exists. It was mapped out and it has not been implemented. And you are saying that's the only way forward.
That's the only way forward. The government must be with the people. And it is the party who must do it.
And I'm going to invite some of our listeners to ask some questions, and we make it interactive. You note the numbers 0911 876 876 0911 876 876. The other one is 0981 876 876 0981 876 876.